Hey everyone, welcome back to the Beyond podcast. I am your host, Dr. Flora, and today we are talking about a topic that you all on my Instagram DM'd me about, voted for. We are going to be talking about passive aggression. We have all been on the recipient end of passive aggression. Like, you know what I'm talking about? Those backhanded compliments, the accidentally forgotten commitments, the sarcastic comments with maybe some underlying truth. It's annoying, it's angering, and it's immature. And in this episode of the Beyond podcast, I am going to help unpack what passive aggressiveness really is, why people resort to it, and most importantly, how to deal with it in a way without ruminating over it and instead keeping your peace and mental clarity intact. Let's do this. Hi, everyone. You are listening to Beyond, and I'm your host, Dr. Flora. Listen, life is hard. You don't have to do it alone. As a mindset coach, physician, mom, and an infertility warrior, I have mastered techniques to help move you towards contentment and growth. I can't wait to go along with this crazy-ass life journey with you while making sure you feel like your best self. This podcast is meant to have you feel unstuck from your rut and less alone. Let's do this. All right, friends, passive aggressiveness. It's a tricky little subject here because it's rampant in so many societies, cultures. It's frustrating, it's confusing, and can even sometimes cause self-doubt because sometimes those backhanded compliments can actually speak to your imposter syndrome truth, but it can also cause doubt like, am I overreacting to this person's sarcasm? So what exactly is passive aggression? I think we've all experienced it, if not dish it out, but many of us don't really take the time to actually identify when we or someone else is engaging in it. Passive aggression is a way of expressing negative feelings in an indirect way. It's because it's often difficult to identify for the person delivering the message and the recipient of that passive aggressive message. So let's put it this way. A very direct personality type, or even a volatile personality type, someone who blows up with anger or starts crying immediately when sad, or someone who is good at thinking on their feet and tells it like it is. Those are some pretty clear emotions with clear messaging. The person feeling angry, hurt, sad are clear on their emotion, and the person around them are also pretty clear in the delivery. But the passive aggressive people, they express their hostility through subtle digs, procrastination, sabotage, because they're expressing negative feelings that they may or may not be aware of instead of openly communicating them. But here's the key issue. This aggression is hidden. It's hidden under a layer of politeness, sarcasm, denial, which makes it hard to call out. I mean, many times, like I said before, those passive aggressive people aren't even aware of their own negative emotions. So it openly hurts and confuses their target. There are so many different ways that we see this in everyday interactions. The first kind is verbal. Backhanded compliments are the best example. Oh, you look so much nicer when you smile. I can't even tell you guys the number of times I have been directly told this growing up, mostly by Indian aunties, uncles, even my grandparents. Also, I can't help that my RBF is my face. Like, I can't imagine walking around with a big ass smile slapped onto my face looking like a clown. Anyway, that's just my 2 cents on that comment. And that's usually the thought process that goes on in my head. Another verbal way is sarcasm. Someone shows up late and you say to them, nice of you to finally show up, obviously expressing disappointment in someone showing up late. Now, look, these 2 examples can be seen as humorous, and most of the time they are received with humor. Because if these passive aggressive comments are not occurring on a regular basis, they can be just passed over, and that's okay. But don't be mistaken by those who have chronic passive aggression. We'll get to that later. My last example in the verbal category is actually the nonverbal silent treatment. So if someone's upset with you, they stop talking to you to relay the fact that you did something wrong or something that they don't agree with. Again, leaving the recipient hurt, confused because it's not verbally communicated. Passive aggression can also happen through actions. Example, purposely not sharing necessary information or resources when asked with the thought that it will slow down someone else's progress. And then maybe in some cases, shifting the blame on you. Or I'm sure we've all probably been involved in team projects, class projects. Someone who is chronically passive aggressive may procrastinate or just not do the work, pretending to not know deadlines or not know the requirements. So they end up not doing the work and other team members pick up the slack. Another way this can present is leaving someone out of a group or a project because you don't like them, feel uncomfortable with them, or have any form of negativity towards them. Again, all of this stems from unclear communication, unclear emotions. The next type of passive aggression is through self-punishment, like sighing heavily and saying, "No, it's fine. I'll just do everything myself. It's just easier." I mean, I've been guilty of this. I'm sure many of you have been too. Well, obviously, you're hoping you'll make the recipient feel guilty for not knowing what their role is or asking questions, but it's out of frustration and it's out of overwhelm and it's out of unclear communication. Another great example is playing the victim, especially in situations where you are at blame. So instead of taking ownership of the fault, the action, it's not your fault and you're feeling upset about it. So hopefully now you have a better understanding of what passive aggressive behavior can look like. So your next step is I want you to practice identifying these passive aggressive behaviors. I also want you to realize when you're engaging in them as well. And like I had briefly mentioned before, all passive aggressive comments and behaviors are a red flag, nor do they need to be fought against. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person or the other person has no emotional intelligence. Occasionally exhibiting passive aggressive tendencies is human and it's not a big deal. It is okay. And if you engage in the occasion comments or behavior, it can mean that you haven't quite processed what you were feeling or you haven't quite determined how to respond. And it's just a signal for you to identify and fix it. Take the time, process your emotion, figure out a response. Again, it's okay. We are all human. Chronic passive aggression, that is what we're going to talk about today. This will routinely express itself throughout various relationships without awareness or concern for how destructive it can be for the relationship. That's a major red flag, and it's really important to know what to do. I believe there is a twofold approach when it comes to relationships built upon passive aggression instead of directly communicating emotions and feelings. It's important to understand that beneath all of these snide remarks lies a deep unhappiness, sadness that the person may or may not be consciously aware of. And this behavior can also be an attempt to gain control in a relationship. So really understanding the possible why is so important. This is step one. Learn the possible why of why this person is making backhanded comments. So understanding the possible why is so important for you to provide empathy and help control and determine your own reaction. So let's go over some possible reasons for why someone is passive aggressive. Reason number one, learned helplessness. Yeah, this means playing the victim. That's the why. This can occur when a person is unwilling or unable to communicate directly or assertively. And that's going to happen in a variety of scenarios, but it usually involves someone being unhappy and saying one thing, but doing another to simply avoid confrontation. Now, the second possible why is actually the opposite. So again, someone doesn't have the ability to speak directly or solve problems in an assertive manner. So they use passive aggression as a power play. Like their ego is involved. So they're not playing victim. They think they are better. They're putting themselves on a pedestal. And when they're knocked down a little bit, they feel threatened. So they use passive aggressive verbiage and behavior to manipulate, to gain control in order to have just a little bit more leverage over someone or a situation. It's a weird, twisted way to help them feel more powerful. Reason number 3 for passive aggressiveness could be to hide negative emotions. Feeling angry, resentful, unhappy in a relationship can lead to underhanded comments and behavior. And when confronted, that person doesn't want to come off as negative and doesn't want conflict. So it's easier to pretend innocence and deny the true intentions, deny actions. A perfect example is one that I used before when someone is intentionally keeping important resources from someone else due to jealousy, resentment, anger. I mean, imagine being confronted with feeling jealous. It's kind of embarrassing. So you act as if it's an innocent mistake. Makes sense. The next why is the want to normalize low expectations. So in some cases, a passive aggressor wants to purposely frustrate a person within a task in order to set low expectations, shed responsibility, and hopefully avoid being asked again. So in this way, a low baseline is established. The recipient is hurt or let down in some way, and the passive aggressor is off the hook. And the last possible why is probably the most obvious: low self-esteem, low self-efficacy. So at some level, a chronic passive aggressive person may be signaling, I'm not good enough, but I don't want to verbalize that I'm not good enough. So don't ask me or I'm going to fail. So that leads to avoidance, that leads to sarcasm, that leads to backhanded compliments, that just leads to mean behavior. Okay, so the first part of this approach we talked about, it's the why. Let's talk about the second part of this approach: what to do when you are faced with a chronically passive aggressive person. So someone who's chronically passive aggressive, this could be a friend, most likely it's a family member, this could be a coworker. I mean, we encounter people with this behavior all the time, and oftentimes avoidance doesn't work because they are integrated in our lives. I just want to start off with this. It's important to dig your heels deep into your confidence bank. I want you to practice being calm, cool, collected enough to decide how to respond. Do you engage now? Do you talk it out later? Do you walk away and just forget about it? Nagging, getting angry, throwing it back at them doesn't improve the relationship. If anything, it actually puts the other person on defense. So it often results in them making excuses or denying any responsibility, which doesn't solve the problem. And I can imagine it only makes you more upset. So recent research has shown that there are healthier ways to confront passive aggression and handle relationship conflict. And those are the two approaches, the twofold approaches that we're going over right now. So one, understanding the why, and the second one I'm going to talk about in a little bit. Remember, you can't control actions, but you can control your reaction. So look, the easy way out is to be passive aggressive back, right? The amount of times I've heard just throw it back at them and they'll shut up may not work to your favor. But you are here listening to this podcast episode, so I know you are working on yourself and I know you are trying to figure out how to grow to be an even better human being. So a good approach, and probably one of the hardest, is to pause, take a few deep breaths, temporarily remove yourself from the situation, and figure out the why. And also, don't forget, walking away is an option. So this Do you ever feel like you are juggling a million things at once? Especially if you are a business owner. You're trying to grow your business, but also, run your business. It can feel like you are drowning in your to-dos with barely a moment to breathe, let alone dream bigger. I have been there. Now, look, I tried hiring a gamut of virtual assistants, but it often felt like there was just one other thing on my to do list. I had to spoon feed tasks, constantly check in, recheck their work, and still worry about things slipping through the cracks. It wasn't until I found Savannah and Natalie at Every Virtual Solutions that I truly understood the difference between help and the right kind of help. They have extensive marketing, development, and executive assistant backgrounds so they can take the weight off of your shoulders so you can focus on what you do best, being the visionary. Book a free discovery call on their website and mention this episode for a 10% discount for your first 6 months. Head over to everyvirtualsolutions.com. That's EVERAE virtualsolutions.com. Whether it's web design, content creation, email management, social media, PR, or anything in between, I know you will find a way to work together to lighten your load. It's time to end the burnout and start focusing on you. Second part of this approach is broken down into different options. And you choose these options depending on the possible why, the possible reason behind the passive aggressive comment, behavior, verbiage. So the first option, showing empathy. I know what you're probably thinking, like, this person just pissed me off over and over and over again. You want me to feel sorry for them? Okay, no, that's not what I'm saying. That's why we went over the whys, the possible reasons for why someone is chronically passive aggressive, so you can understand which direction to go. So let me give you an example of how empathy could potentially help with your reaction. For example, a mom friend at your child's school makes a comment about not seeing you volunteer in your child's school or classroom because you work full time. Ooh, this really gets my blood boiling because I've been told this and I've had comments behind my back because when I did work full time, I mean, let's be real, I still work full time, but when I was in clinic full time, that guilt is real. So that guilt can also transfer as anger when someone attacks it. So again, I want you to pause and think about this. We went through the reasons of why someone can be passive aggressive. And in this example, I think we can all agree that it's pretty clear low self esteem could be a possibility, or maybe ego. Maybe this person feels inadequate for not working and it makes her feel better making those comments to you. Or maybe she firmly believes that women should not work and they should provide at home. So again, lifting herself up on a pedestal by putting you down. Understanding this perspective will help you formulate your response. And I'm not asking you to apologize. I'm not asking you to bend over. I'm going to be clear about this again. You do not need to be passive. You do not need to roll over. You do not need to apologize for offensive behavior and comments. So now that you know a possible why, you're applying it to the situation, you can respond with, I know it's really difficult for me to make last minute changes with work and volunteer, but that's why I am so grateful to have moms like you helping our kids. See how that worked? You're not coming out with fighting words. You're not putting her down. You are expressing a boundary with the inflexibility you have with your job, but also expressing gratitude for her flexibility. And the best part of this is you are not enabling, you are not apologizing, and you're not also walking away, which again, may not help the whole situation. The second option is to hold a boundary. You could hold a physical boundary by distancing yourself or walking away. You could verbalize a boundary with a concise, direct statement. And before you make your statement, here are some tips. Avoid blame, avoid name calling like, oh, you're such a child or you're so immature. They may be, but again, we're not here to fight. We're here to diffuse the situation and stand up for ourselves. So instead, hold them accountable for their hurtful behavior. Directly address this issue and be specific about what they do that upsets you. And I'm going to say this again and again and again. You've heard this before if you've listened to my other podcast episodes. Boundaries are for you. They are for you to express your feelings, hold closure. They are not to help someone else change their behavior. Look, if they do change their behavior and things go towards your direction, that's such a bonus, but that's not the expectation. So an example of holding a boundary was the same example that I used earlier with the option of showing empathy. You held your boundary, meaning you're not flexible at work, therefore you cannot make it, and you're expressing gratitude, and that's where that empathy part comes in. The third option, neutral naming. Name the behavior you see, call it out, but be a robot. No emotion, no blame, no name calling. Be neutral. Why does this matter? This matters because passive aggression thrives in ambiguity. The moment you bring it into the open, calmly, clearly, you disarm it. Not with defensiveness, not with accusation, but with emotionally unloaded truth. Let's go through an example. And I know I've said this version plenty of times. And if you are a type A woman, I'm sure you've said this many a time. I guess I'll do the dishes since no one else is going to. I guess I'll do the laundry since no one else is. I guess I'll pick up all the shit from the stairs that I've left for you to pick up because you're not doing it. Now, a response to this would be, you're such a martyr, just ask us and we'll do it. Obviously, that's not the point. But since you listened to this podcast, one, I hope you won't be engaging in statements like these. But two, if you are confronted with a statement because that person is overwhelmed and exhausted, you'll know how to respond. So let's neutral name it. That sounds like there's some frustration there. Can we talk about what's going on? I really want to help. Did you see what I did there? I'm not accusing. I'm not playing dumb. I'm just naming the emotional elephant in the room without shaming it. I did the neutral naming, frustration. I didn't call the person making the passive aggressive comment names. And I also actually didn't say how I felt about that. I just know that person expressed frustration and I'd like to help. Now, they still may deflect, deny, say, what? Oh, I didn't mean anything by it. It's fine. Don't worry about it. And that's okay. You're not doing neutral naming to have someone agree with you. You're naming it so you don't abandon your truth just to keep the peace. Because ignoring all of this just doesn't make it go away. It teaches people that your silence is safe for their dysfunction to hide. I'm going to repeat that. Ignoring it does not make passive aggressive behavior and comments go away. It teaches those who make passive aggressive comments that your silence is a safe place for their dysfunction to hide. So use some of these options as responses. First, understand the why. There are plenty of possible reasons why someone makes hurtful comment. And then choose your response. Show empathy, formulate a boundary, and neutral name it. You can combine all three of these. Well, that's it. I hope you guys learned something. Thanks so much for diving into the world of passive aggression with me. It's tricky stuff. But the more we name it, the more we recognize it, the easier it gets to call it out and not take it personally. So whether you're on the giving or receiving end, let's be real, it's been both. You're not alone. Keep practicing those honest conversations. Keep practicing those clear boundaries. Give yourself and someone else a little bit of grace along the way. I'm cheering you on every step. As always, thanks for tuning in. And remember, friends, mindset is medicine. You got this. Live beyond your labels. Keep showing up for yourself, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you so much for joining and spending your precious time here with me. As someone who prioritizes her energy, I am so grateful that you chose to spend yours here. To help me help you, please take an extra 30 seconds of your time to rate and review the podcast on your listening platform. For more tips and a behind-the-scenes look into my life, follow me on Instagram at Dr. Flora Sinha. That's Dr. Flora Sinha. Finally, connecting with you truly fills my cup. So DM me on Instagram, email me at florasinhamd@gmail.com, repost if you love this episode. I love hearing from you. I am so grateful for you and cannot wait to be back for the next episode. Bye.